let's do this. Happy Balinese New Year, everyone. It's Nepi. It's the day of silence, which means basically lockdown in the house, no leaving the house, no lights, no technology. And I believe the Balinese are fasting as well for this little holiday. But I thought I'd film a YouTube video and let you guys know how Bali has changed. If you're unaware, I did spend 7 months of COVID here in Bali in 2020, starting in March until like mid to late September. And now I'm currently here. It is March. No, it's April now? No, it's March. End of March 2023. Is it April yet? I don't know. It's March 2023. And so that is really early season for Bali. The wind has just changed and the season for the waves is just starting. However, typical March time for Bali is very early season, so it shouldn't be as crowded as it is. My first experience of Bali was COVID. So I had never been here before. I'd been to all parts of Indonesia, but never Bali. Just I never wanted to come here because of the crowds. And then I ended up here during COVID. And that was obviously like an incredible experience. There was no one here. I'm basically going to break down what Bali is like now, how's the crowds, how prices have changed. For me, I prepared myself for the worst coming here. I knew that I had only ever been here when it was like an unreal experience, unreal cheap prices, nobody around. I prepared myself for like absolute chaos. I prepared myself for there to be so many people here, super hectic, super crowded. And for March, I would say there's a good amount of people here from what I've heard from other people, but personally, I don't think it's too crowded. For me, it's like every other day at Uluwatu, which is normal, but not for this time period. So I don't even know what it's going to be like here come June, July, like peak season. But in terms of crowds, I don't mind surfing with a crowd, but when Uluwatu is small, yeah, it's really crowded. And I don't know if any of you know the beach Yang Yang, but Yang Yang during COVID was not even paved. The drive down was so sketchy. It was like gravel, dirt road. It was very, very gnarly to go down there. And that's a beach that you surf when the swell is pretty small because it gets that direct southwest swell, whereas Uluwatu gets the swell that is big enough to wrap all the way around. So when Uluwatu is like 1 foot, Yang Yang can be like 3 to 4 fun. That used to all be gravel. It used to be super hard to go down. It used to always be uncrowded because of that. Now there is a parking lot at the bottom. There is warongs. There's a DJ that plays at sunset, and the beach is always packed. And therefore, the wave is very crowded as well. People are calling it the new Bingin. I wouldn't say that's unfortunate. I think Yang Yang is a super special beach, and it's really cool. There's a couple different waves down there, and it's a fun vibe. You have no service when you get down there, so it's kind of nice. It's a nice little escape for your like Sunday afternoon, sunset time. It is way more crowded. And I do think that it's kind of a good thing because people will spread out more versus everyone going to Uluwatu when it's small. They have other options. Ulu is packed and there's a lot of people out there that shouldn't be out there. I've seen a lot of people get stitches in the last few days just from kooks like throwing their board. So if you're an inexperienced surfer and you really just want to surf Uluwatu, make sure you hire a surf guide or you ask somebody when it's a good day for you to go. Don't just go out there. It's so dangerous. I'm going to do a whole nother video on TikTok about that because it's kind of ridiculous what's been happening. So that's the crowds. But then again, Uluwatu hasn't changed in the sense that when the waves are big, it's not very crowded because, like I said, some people know their limits and some people know when they should not be out there. So when it has been big, it's mostly just been like the local boys and people that can surf. So that's good. I haven't been over to Bingin yet because we haven't had a big enough swell, so I can't really tell you how much that has changed, but Bingin's always been crowded. So in terms of like motorbikes on the street, I don't like when it's like super crowded, and it's only crowded when you get to like the main road. Just around town up here is pretty much okay. There is a lot of new restaurants, a lot of new Westerners building homestays and houses, and properties are going up big time. The land has also gotten much more expensive, which is happening all over the world ever since like the past like 2 years. So that's not a surprise. And let's talk about the prices because this is the biggest thing that has changed. So to give you some context, when I was here during COVID, obviously the Balinese people like a lot of local families were really struggling. It was a really tough time for a lot of local families to make money. So the tourists that were here, we were getting insanely cheap prices just because these people like needed people to come eat at their place, at their restaurant, at their homestays. I believe my rent for a month was 3 million rupiah. I'll put the conversions on the screen. For my motorbike for rental, I paid 300,000 rupiah a month. Food prices, depending on where you went, they kind of changed, but not too much. So let's talk about what the prices are now. Here's my COVID prices that I was paying. And now let's compare those to the current prices. The current prices to rent a homestay or a place for 1 month, very similar to what I rented in COVID, is now 10 million rupiah, sometimes more. 10 million is like pretty cheap, I guess, is from what I'm hearing. A bike rental now goes for an average 1.5 million. That's a pretty big jump, to say the least. But prices are definitely going up here in Bali. The amount of like diversity of people that travel here is always going to amaze me. Like hearing Russian, German, and Dutch and French, and like every kind of nationality travels here, which I think is pretty special about Bali. But it is getting very crowded. Usually, those types of accents and those types of languages you are only hearing down in Canggu, and now it's all over the Bukit. The Bukit is like Uluwatu area, Bingin, stuff like that. So that has changed quite a bit. But the positives of this change, I believe, like personally for me, I feel like Bali is becoming a place that you used to be kind of, I don't want to say isolated, but it used to be really hard to get access to certain things, little things. And I've really seen a big change in like the availability of products and the efficiency of restaurants and silly stuff. Like you go on Google Maps and you look at the hours of a restaurant and you're like, oh, sweet, it's open. And you drive there and it like doesn't exist anymore or it's closed. That doesn't really happen as much anymore. That's happened to me so many times. So that's kind of nice. You can get more things like delivered to your address. From an example is like for me for fitness, I like to have some like protein powder and some certain supplements, and so I can get those delivered to my place now. Whereas before I was driving 2 hours to Denpasar to get access to stuff like that. It's a little bit more civilized, I guess you could say, but it is more crowded and the prices have definitely gone up. I think that if you do plan to come to Bali, just don't expect what you normally would expect, like cheap prices and not a lot of people surfing when the waves are good. Like there's a lot of people now. Prices have gone up. But that being said, now there's more opportunity for places like Sumbawa and Sumatra and even Lombok. There's a lot of hidden amazing gems around this amazing country of Indonesia. So don't get your heart set on Bali. I would definitely look to other places. I am thinking about doing a video on the other islands I've been to just to shed some light on that, because I do get a lot of questions about that because a lot of people these days don't want to surf with a crowd. So comment below and let me know if that's something you want to see, and I will think about getting that done for you guys. But otherwise, yeah, that's my basic update on Bali. I'm going to keep it pretty short and pretty brief. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.